Hello, my friends, and welcome back. We are here for week 7. So excited to welcome Suzanne Vinson along with Dr. Minette Riordan and myself. And I am amped. I'm pumped. I'm super excited for this conversation because it holds my number one core value. And again, just like all the other weeks, they all just mesh so beautifully. I really truly don't know how that magically happens, but every week we keep saying the same thing. They all merge together. So this week we're talking about integrity, meaning, and innovation. I didn't say those in order, but that's okay, right? Integrity, meaning, and innovation. So like I mentioned, integrity is the one that just jumps out at me. And I've done some work around integrity recently. So I'm curious to hear for you guys, do you have a core value, and are you ever set of the ones that we've been working on? Do you have one that you feel like, oh yes, that's it? And then do you ever feel like you sort of stumble and you're like, I thought that was like, I thought that meant that I was doing it perfectly, or maybe my internal expectation was that one's going to show up like, best of all the time. And then do you ever find that you stumble with one, or you find, I feel like I'm stumbling over my words, but what I found and what a beautiful guest, one of the participants in this creative stretch said, aren't they aspirational? Aren't these aspirational? And I'm like, there we go. There's the permission that I needed, that they are largely aspirational. These are things that I want to live towards. I want to live with integrity in everything that I do. And I look at it through the lens of, is that acting with integrity? How are you guys feeling today?
Suzanne, go ahead. I have lots to say about this one too.
Ooh, integrity. We talk about this, my spouse and I, just in many different ways in life. And I feel like being true to myself and being true to the observance of life around is a part of integrity. And boy, there's been a lot to witness in the last couple of years. And you could say that about any time, but there have been some really significant social changes that have needed to be made and still need to. And I've thought about that a lot in terms of how I live with integrity as an artist and really stick to it. So I'm with you on that. The aspirational aspect I really resonate with.
Yeah, me too. And I feel like integrity is not only the most important value to me, it's always at the top of my list. It's my greatest teacher because it's so clear when I reflect on integrity and I see where I'm out of integrity, most often with myself. Like I've spent so much of my life making sure that I'm in integrity with my promises to others or my commitments and services to others, and always doing the right thing. And yet there are those times when it comes to self-care or my creative practice or my relationships with my family, where I really have to question my own integrity. I'm saying this is that it's important to me. So then why am I not living the truth of that over here? So in that case, it definitely becomes aspirational, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I love that we're also taking the definitions, because I think sometimes we think we know what a word means.
Yeah.
And then we look at it and we're like, oh, words can have so many more definitions or meanings beyond it. And that is also why I love the fact that we're putting some sort of visual element with this as well, because I can say integrity, but how does that visually represent? That's been a huge disconnect for me. But as an artist, if I say, I was writing about it this morning, as a matter of fact, if I say I am an amateur, playful, create, like I go after things with a playful curiosity, and I identify as an amateur artist.
Yeah.
Right. I feel in integrity. Then I'm not setting myself up to be anything other than what I truly am. I am who I am. And then when I'm not saying I'm a, fine artist who shows in galleries. That may not even be an aspiration of mine. Like,
Mhm.
I just
Yep.
want to be who I am and feel fully okay with what that is.
Mhm.
I'm not putting up a front or a mask or trying to be anything that I'm not.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that one of the definition is that integrity literally means wholeness, right? To be in
Mm-hmm.
wholeness, an undivided or unbroken completeness or totality with nothing wanting. And I love that. So to me, the listening to you talk, hi Livius. I love the coffee service. You're so lucky. I could use one of those right now. I love the looking at being in integrity is that sense of wholeness and knowing who I am and how I identify. And so when you said that about I'm a playful, curious, explorative artist on the journey, then you're not claiming to be anything and other who you are, which brings us all the way back to the very beginning to authenticity and alignment.
Right.
Right. And to today's other value, which I think was the one that Suzanne, you focused most on in your video, which is meaning.
Mm-hmm.
And the intersection and connection between integrity and meaning for me was really, really inspiring and powerful. So I'd love to hear more, Suzanne, around your thoughts about meaning as a value.
Ooh, meaning as a value. So I feel like I've always wanted everything to mean something or to seek out the meaning in things, whether it's something that happens or an issue or a blessing in relationship. And over the course of my middle years, I find that I'm okay not understanding the meaning of things, but more looking at it from the meaning I put into them. Where is my heart? Am I looking at things with open eyes? Am I accepting things or noticing things with an open heart and an open mind? And so for me, that's almost it. I don't know. That's the juncture at which I'm pulling it in. The other aspect of meaning that I've been thinking about, especially with all this, does intersect with integrity, because part of my journey has been living with chronic illness since I was 15. And art for me fills the space of meaning where I can really process. It is absolutely self-care and soul care. And I can find wholeness through it. So in the video, I talk a little bit about sort of my visual dictionary. And so there are some movements, even with making art, that I think, okay, I'm letting go right now. I'm releasing this. And others where I'm saying, okay, I need some energy today. So I'm just going to be there with that. So I'm not sure if that connects for each of you, but I'm curious to know, what are you hearing in that? And how does that connect for you?
I love that so much, and it really resonated with me when you said, I'm always looking for meaning. And I too am like, well, perhaps that happened because X, Y, and Z, right? I'm always trying to connect the dots, and then knowing that you've gotten to this point, or perhaps, or on the journey to getting to the point of, I don't need to know the meaning, just like I can make the meaning be whatever it is. Like it happened because that was the lesson that I needed right here, right now. And that is enough for me. Right. Yes. I love that. I love that so much. Because there can be multiple meanings, and we don't know, we never have the full picture. We don't know. And I think that the more I wrap my head around, like I try to, spin around and try and figure it all out. I can get spun out. It's too much. It's too much.
I love that. When I think about meaning in my art, I'm very much like you, Suzanne, where I use so often the page as a way to work through things, right? Like as a way to celebrate, as a way to release, as a definitely space for grieving, whether that's writing morning pages or creating art journal pages. And Andrea and I have talked about this in other classrooms and scenarios as well, is sometimes we just make pretty pages, and that's super awesome too.
Yes.
And to be okay for that and not always get caught up in there has to be a deeper meaning. And so as someone who's an academic, a poetry lover, like, you know, my whole career was about analyzing words, like I can get caught up in seeking that deeper meaning on the page. And sometimes it is just, I loved what you said. I wrote it down, the self-care and soul care, like just giving myself permission to be in that space on the page, which brings us full circle to innovation. Right. And I had so much fun playing with innovation. I can't wait to share in the video. I went way wordier than I have been because we had some interesting conversations on our live call. And Andrea, you said this as well about how are we bridging that gap between the written and the visual, between the words and the imagery. And sometimes it's hard to know, you know, where to find our space in that. And so I really played with that after our call earlier this week about, like, what does that look like? And what are some other ways that I could bring even more of the words and make the words the art and make them visual, which you do so much of beautifully in your work, Suzanne. I love your words are art. Your illustrations are gorgeous, but your script and calligraphy is just beautiful. But when I think about this playful curiosity and this seeking meaning, those two things are at the intersection of innovation, which is all about what we are talking about in a couple of weeks, which is solving problems in 2 weeks. But we already did our interview with Cindy, so it's top of mind as well. But this idea that innovation is really about making things our own, making them new again. And it's not about coming up with something like so radically outside the box, but it's taking a little bit from Suzanne and a little bit from Andrea and a little bit from Minette. And how do you mash all of that up and make it uniquely yours? To me, that is the flow of innovation, is that insight of that bright idea that happens when you start to look at this and you look at that. And Andrea, it makes me 100% think about your Under the Influence series, which I love so much, because it's exactly what you're doing, is helping us innovate. And in the process of writing and doing this artwork around innovation, like it just all of a sudden started to rise to the top of my list in a whole new way around my creative practice. Like I do that in business all the time, but where could I do that personally, be in the energy and the magic of innovation? So that's what I'm thinking right now about.
I can't wait to watch your video and hear what you have to say even more about that. Yeah, innovation is, it might be another one of those fabric of my being sort of things, because you know, in a couple of weeks we talk about problem solving, and that's also sort of like innovative ways of thinking of things. And I oftentimes, what you just mentioned, Under the Influence, and I oftentimes mention that my creative practice is oftentimes looking at a pantry of food items, right? Ingredients, looking at a pantry of ingredients rather than art supplies. And how am I going to make the meal with all of these different ingredients? And, you know, innovatively, I can mix and match. And that's how it shows up in my creative practice. Like, wow, let's try this. Let's try some cardamom today. Every time, you know, like I'm always using cinnamon, let's try cardamom. And how's that going to change it up today? And so, I love that core value of innovation might just be one that I'm naturally inclined to, just because that is in my being of how I do things.
Yeah. How about you, Suzanne?
Absolutely. I think I want to touch on, you know, the Under the Influence series, having been a part of that before. And Andrea, I was so impressed with how, you know, the influence comes back too. Like, to see what you all take and make in the series is such a gift. And it helps me see things from a new perspective, I think, too. I think it's easy for us to forget that we're innovative. I think we dismiss it, or might not catch it as it's happening, but upon reflection, look at it. And honestly, this week has made me look at that and say, where have I been innovative in my art? Because I'm not even sure anymore, because you get in those habits of being, perhaps. But I started looking in my sketchbook and was like, oh no, this is completely new for me. And there's a sketchbook I put together this year that I decided I would do whatever I wanted. Didn't matter. No page had to look like any before it. And it's been a very freeing process. And I think that the word play would be the first word that I would say. It's been this little playground for my pantry of supplies to dance with each other, really. And I think the practice of showing up again and again and again to our art really adds to being innovative, because you can only keep growing. We're not stagnant, right? Each time we do something new or different, or because it's a new day and we're a new being in that day, something emerges.
It's funny that you say that. Sometimes do you ever feel like, and maybe it's just me, but just sometimes you ever feel like, man, I'm doing the same thing at like, I'm not going to be able to, here's my fear. I'm just going to throw it out there transparently. Here's my fear. I'm going to tap out of new and innovative ideas. I'm going to tap, it's going to be completely dry. I'm going to have no more new innovative ideas. Nothing more fresh is going to come out. And it's never happened, but it's never, I have absolutely zero evidence that is ever going to happen, but there is still that underlying, like, oh, someday you're just,
you know what FAIR stands for, right? False evidence
evidence
appearing
of
real.
real. Yeah. Well, I've heard lots of acronyms for fear in being in the rooms of recovery. Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
I have heard lots of them.
In the art world, that's such an important one, right?
Yeah.
Like that we make so many false assumptions
Yeah.
about our own ability to innovate and ideate, and about our exquisite creative ability that we all have. And it just takes a while to find our path. And so you two especially have a clearly defined sense of style and path, right? And so I would be curious how innovation supports you in not getting bored rather than running out of ideas when you're known for a particular style or focus.
There's a local artist in town, and years ago he had written or been interviewed, and he goes by 4 different personas, or was at the time. And under each persona, he allowed himself to be completely different. And so I thought that was so fascinating. And yet I thought, I want to always be me though. I don't know that I want to put on a new skin or any of that, but I try to give myself permission in the same way to just do whatever I want to. And lately it's been, what can I do that looks messy? Because I feel like a lot of my work, especially with the watercolor, doesn't have the same quality as when I'm using the acrylic mixed media and using my fingers to paint. I love finger painting and, using all the different parts of our hands. So I'm thinking, my art is looking pretty manicured because I've developed it for so long. And so I've been stepping outside of that and just trying to get messy, and it has its own beauty and it's still polished in its own way. So for me, that's stepping outside and just taking a risk, really.
Yeah. I like that. I can definitely get into my comfort zone. And so a number of years ago, I wanted so badly to feel like I knew who I was as an artist, that I just felt like, oh, somebody could look at my work and be like, oh, that's Andrea. Just like we can look at Kelly Ray Roberts and say, oh, that's Kelly Ray Roberts, or Flora Bowley, or there's so many names
Elisa
that I
Burke.
could say. Elisa Burke, right? And say, oh, that's identifiable. And it wasn't ego that was driving that. I just wanted to feel like I wasn't just following all these, because I was learning from so many different artists at that time. I wanted so badly to have that mashup that we were talking about earlier, taking this little piece and this little piece and making it. And I wanted Andrea to shine through. And so Andrea shines through definitely in the colors that I use, the marks that I use, but I can also get really comfortable with just like sliding into, oh yeah, these are like they're hanging on my rack right next to me, my pink and my orange and my green and my aqua and my, yellow and my white and my black. And Those are the colors that I use and the marks that I make. So for me to be innovative would be to try something new, to be in the discomfort of not being super comfortable in something, but I want to get better at drawing, for example. Now, how can I incorporate that into, pull that into, stretch myself a little bit? Because we are talking about the stretch
Yep.
myself a little bit to trying something new, incorporating something new into the areas that I'm already comfortable. So yeah, I love that. That sort of call to stretch a little bit, because I know when I'm trying something new and I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel that comfy, cozy feel that I feel when I'm doing my thing. And I've got, paint on my fingers from this morning, even when I've got my colors going, if I'm trying something else.
Yeah, I love that.
Mhm. I was going to say, I identify with that greatly, because to stretch for me would be stepping outside of my typical color palette. Using a different size brush, or
no opera pink. What if we just said no more opera pink, Suzanne?
I don't know. I've actually pushed myself with that, because if I open my watercolor palette for you, I need to refill opera pink.
I know, it was in your video.
Oh, that's right. That's why you're saying it. Oh my gosh. Yeah. So true.
Awesome. Beautiful. Well,
Love
we could continue on in this conversation all day.
We absolutely could. Minette, did you have any final words for us?
No, thank you. Just thank you to Suzanne for another rich conversation. This has been my favorite part of the creative stretch, have been these interviews and the live connections with the students. It's all been amazing, but these interviews have been really magical.
I agree 100%. And thank you so much for coming on with us, Suzanne. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the classroom and see what you do with the lessons and hear your thoughts on these core values this week. And we will see you somewhere out there on the internet. Thank you so much for being with us.